And we're live. What is up, everybody? Aaron the Dog back with the third and final breakdown of the week. It's the LFA 129 breakdown with Lucky Locks himself, the one and only. How you doing today, Lucky?
Doing great. Excited to talk about this card. Got some good fights on here. Coming live from Minnesota this week, so some good Midwestern prospects on display. And yeah, should be a fun card. Excited to get into it.
Yep, yeah, Minnesota, and so one of the 3 or 4 kind of regular places the LFA seems to show up in quite a bit. So got a heavyweight title fight as the headliner here. We got a few favorites of mine on the card, but one of my favorite underdog bets of last year, Cummins from LFA. I remember watching him fight Anthony Kalani. I went back and rewatched that fight. That fight was not as fun as I remembered it. The Anthony Kalani Cummins fight that I cashed on, but still got the knockout there, and then got a few other notable guys on here. Devonte Sewell's found his way back over here, so always good to see Devonte. But yeah, it should be a good one. Tyus White making his return from his fight with Tony Laramie that I actually was bringing up quite a bit yesterday when talking about TJ Laramie. So just talking about the Laramies. So yeah, it's a good card overall. Pretty excited about it, and good weekend of MMA once again. Ari's on, I believe, Saturday morning for the States as well. Taylor Lepuy and others. So good weekend of MMA once again. I'm really looking forward to that Luque Bilal rematch, particularly. A little bit nervous for Luque, but I do have Luque as of now. But definitely wouldn't be shocked if Bilal takes it away. Not going to do the prelims as always. We're just doing the main card. There is one fight on the prelims I'm particularly excited about, though. It's an amateur fight between Santos Verdines and Gabriel Vanderlei. Gabriel Vanderlei got to take a look at him as a result of a win he had against another fighter who's on this card. So really exciting prospect there who I think will go pro after this fight. But going to start at bantamweight, and I think this should be a very exciting fight between Quang Lee and Mr. Sam Penietz, I believe is how you say it, Penietz. What up, the glove touch in the house? How you doing, sir? We are good. We're breaking down LFA, but Sam Penietz, Night, or is how you say his name, and 24 years old, fighting out of the Wolves Den in Missouri here. This guy is just like a little ball of energy. No other way to put it. He is like coming out. I think probably has more belief in him than anybody on the card. He's like one of those little guys who just thinks that, I think he's just kind of had his whole life, kind of had a problem with being discredited, being too small. He kind of fights that way. So he's very exciting, small fighter, like a burst type of fighter, almost like a Lineker or whatnot, with how he throws the hooks with power. Not saying his power is at that point. Against Joey Von Blackenberg, it was able to watch. It was an 18-second fight. Got a standing guillotine. He just ran in there and just bullied him, and he put him out on the feet with that guillotine. It was an 0-2 fighter, however, and he lost his debut by guillotine choke in under a minute. So the Brandon Morse fight, also was able to see it. Uses wrestling a lot in that fight, ground and pound, and kind of just beat him up for 15 minutes. Was a dominant decision. Hasn't faced anybody of note as a pro on the amateur scene. Tested himself a lot more with IMAF. Tough Enough champ as well. So got some good amateur experience for sure. Only one loss there. A lot of KOs on his record. I definitely think that on the feet, he can put away a lot of fighters, and I just think against a guy like Quang Lee, who did miss weight recently in his fight that he won, but missed weight. He did win by neck crank. Looks like a decent fighter from what I've been able to watch. Not crazy about him missing weight like a little over a month ago and taking another fight here, but 3-0, 5'6". He's going to be the taller, longer opponent. He is fighting on Minnesota as well. So most likely I have the crowd on his side, and he was the guy who faced Gabriel Wanderlei in their fight. It was a really, really good fight. Very entertaining fight back and forth, and I think Wanderlei is going to be pretty legit. So The submission there, I'm not holding against him too highly in cage discussion. Eimer Hernandez, another guy he lost to, who we were able to see make his debut, I believe, with Cage Warriors recently. He looked okay with Cage Warriors, didn't look amazing, but still, I think a legit prospect. This should be a really, really interesting fight. I've liked what I've seen out of Sam Peniotz, sorry, however you say the name. Me saying a last name wrong shouldn't be anything new. But I do like what I've seen out of Sam, but I think he is able to get away with quite a bit based on the level of competition he's facing. I do think Quang Lee is going to be a little bit tougher to reach and hit, and I do like the level of competition Quang's faced. This is a really close fight. I've been kind of back and forth. Originally, I was on Sam. I'm actually going to switch my pick, and I'm going to go with Quang Lee actually in this one. I think that he's got good submission and grappling skills. The wrestling defense is going to be the key here. If it's on the feet, I do think he can kind of have this at a distance that he needs it to be successful. So I'm going to edge towards Quang ever so slightly, but I did like what I saw of Sam. So no bet for me here, but I am going to take Quang. And when I took a look at the odds, I saw he's the underdog, which I was surprised about.
Yeah, so this is should be a good fight to kick the card off. Lee was 7-4 as an amateur, 3-0 now as a pro with 2 submissions and 2 wins in the LFA prelims. Good to see him on the main card now, getting that next bump up. And Sam Peniotz, 13-1 as an amateur. You mentioned he was the tough enough flyweight champ as an amateur at 135 here. Also had some IMMAF experience as well at a couple different of those tournaments. 2-1 now as a pro. Early in his pro debut, got caught in a guillotine, ended up winning his last fight via the guillotine as well, which you went over. And this guy's really big at 135. Looks really athletic. Looks like he cuts quite a bit to on for this weight, I would say. Lee also, you mentioned he missed weight not very long ago, and now he's taking another fight at 135 here. I'm not sure how much I really like that for him either. Taping this fight and just before I looked at the odds, I kind of just assumed that Lee was going to be the favorite in this fight, and I thought I might be able to get Peniotz as an underdog, but he ended up being the slight favorite. I think it was kind of somewhat justified. Now I'm seeing like minus 160, minus 170. I'm not really interested in that number, but I do like Sam Peniotz to win in this one.
Yeah, I think at this point, like it's one I'm just going to leave alone completely. Yeah, minus 165 I'm seeing for Sam now. I was fully expecting Sam to be the underdog. I was going to take a shot on him as an underdog. And so, yeah, it is one that I just think it's going to be close. Just the level of competition, I would edge significantly to Quang Lee. Just even though he hasn't beat those certain guys, I do like the LFA experience as well. But I think it's going to be a close one. Me personally, I'm rooting for Sam. I'd like to see Sam win. His style is pretty pleasing and exciting, and just overall, like, he seems like a guy who really believes in himself. But yeah, it should be an interesting one here for me, and we'll see if the Quang Lee rushing to take another fight after missing weight is a good sign or a bad sign. I have a hard time reading that move and that decision as well. So, gonna move on to the next fight here. I'm very excited about this fight. Love me some T. Cummins. He cashed against Anthony Kalani back in the day, and I just hold on to my dogs when they do that a little bit. But overall, he's a very exciting striker, bare knuckle fighter as well. Like, took those during the pandemic, so pretty standard stationary striker. Throws mostly boxing with his strikes as well. Doesn't mix it up too much, but still only 29 years old, so a little bit surprising there. I thought he was a little bit older, taking on the 22-year-old, the mindless Hulk, Dylan Budka. I hate that nickname. The nickname is awful, but Dylan Budka, he's good. I mean, he's a very, very good wrestler. Went to Notre Dame College for wrestling in Ohio, and very, very well built. 5'11". Both these guys are 5'11", so both these guys smaller or shorter, I should say, heavyweights. Took his debut at Icon last year. All 3 of his pro fights were last year, actually, and his debut was against David Gladfelter, 2-0 fighter, about 6'3", really long, lengthy type of guy who just kind of Budka was beaten up, taken down, getting him into some really kind of advantageous top positions, and just I think Budka just kind of gassed himself out a little bit in his debut there, and the experienced David Gladfelter took advantage, got the back, and it was a rear naked choke without the arm underneath the chin, and that's always a red flag for me. But I do think it was more of a exhaustion tap than a tap due to lack of submission defense. So that is a positive and a negative, I guess, for me with Dylan. It ended up getting a decision against a 2-2 fighter in the next fight, used his wrestling again, and then Jet Jones knocked him on 9 seconds. Jet Jones is 2-10. So, I do think that Budka kind of had a little bit of a shell shock after a very successful amateur career where he was, facing a good level of competition. Lost 2 decisions as an amateur, but otherwise pretty successful there. He's going to look to take Cummins down and stay on top of him. I mean, he's not going to want to trade with Cummins. I think that's pretty obvious. Cummins does leave himself pretty stationary quite a bit. He's a big heavyweight, or a big light heavyweight, I should say. He's fought at heavyweight before. He's got a pretty low center of gravity. I do think that Cummins, as long as this stays on the feet, should be able to, have the success. But Budka's a very good wrestler, and he's very good at keeping it there when it gets there. So I'm actually taking Dylan Budka in this spot. I just think that he has the higher upside. I think he's the better overall MMA fighter, and I think he's going to show a lot more improvements fight to fight still at 22 years old. And the wrestling in the back pocket here against a stationary stand-up guy in Cummins. I went back and watched a few of Cummins' fights, and he does kind of wait for the action to come to him a little bit too much for the counters and whatnot. And I just think in this case, he's going to be countering by takedown defense. And I just think that Dylan's a high-level wrestler, and I think he's going to take this one. So I like Dylan to get the decision win. This was another one where I did my tape before looking at the odds. I was expecting Dylan to be the favorite. Shocked he's not. So I'll take the shot on the dog, and I did bet it. Dylan Budka by decision.
Yeah, this is, you said it. This is going to be a really fun fight to watch. I'm really looking forward to this one. T. Cummins from Memphis, Tennessee. He's 29, 6-3 as an amateur. Went 2-0 with 2 knockouts to start his pro career. Then fights 2 bare knuckle boxing matches, wins both of those. Then wins 2 more MMA fights by knockout. Anthony Kalani in the main event of LFA 101. That was the fight that really kind of opened my eyes to him. And then he also fought against Josh Silveira for the LFA 205 title after getting one more win outside of the LFA. And he was defeated in that one. But, Josh Silveira, top prospect, signed with the PFL now. He's here at 185 pounds now, according to Tapology. Explosive guy. He's got heavy hands. He has, powerful takedowns, physically very strong. But he's coming up against another really physically strong guy and another really big guy, or should be really big for 185 pounds, and Dylan Budka, who had a 7-2 amateur career. I think he won like 4 belts as an amateur. Like, it could be more, just like from what I'm seeing. I think he won a 205 title in like 3 different organizations. He won a heavyweight title somewhere as an amateur. Now as a pro, he's 2-1. He's fought at a different weight class every fight. He did a catchweight of 195, fought at middleweight before, and also fought at 205, a light heavyweight. And all 3 of his pro fights have been this year. End of January, he lost his pro debut. And then he won his next one in March. And then 7 days later, he got a 9-second KO. He was a high school All-American wrestler. I believe he was a national champion as well. He has some like decent boxing. I mean, nothing like incredible that I'm like really think he's going to have any kind of an advantage on the feet here. I don't think he will. But it's decent enough to where I think he can use it to kind of, get where he wants to be for the most part. But yeah, very, very strong wrestler. And he has the pedigree, you can see it on paper, and we've also seen him do it in the cage too, against guys who actually I think are a lot bigger than him. So, at 185 pounds, this is a really big boy. So
that's a great point. I forgot it was at 185. Totally.
Yeah, 185. Yeah. Both of them, I think, are going to be huge. They're
struggling.
Really explosive guys. And one of them has plus money next to their name. So I got to agree with you and lean towards the dog and Dylan Budka here. I kind of, I assumed T. Cummins was going to be the favorite. And before I did tape, I was kind of in agreement with that. But yeah, after running the tape, man, Dylan Budka impressed me. He looks like a real promising guy, and in the wrestling base is extremely strong. I think he's a really legit wrestler. Cummins, like I said, probably has the advantage on the feet, but yeah, I'm going to trust the wrestler in this one at plus money to get it done.
Yeah, I agree. Plus 115, minus 150 on T. Cummins in this spot. It's kind of annoying because on UFC Fight Pass, for whatever reason, their Xbox app, when you search for fights, you can't, the space bar doesn't work. So you have to like make your choice. Like you have to choose one of the names to kind of search for, like the first name or last name, which is going to be easier. So I searched Cummins. So I had to go through like all of the Ashley Cummins fights on Fight Pass and all the Pat Cummins fights on Fight Pass. And then they put all the Zach Cummins fights in front of the T Cummins fight. So it was like just kind of a random little note there. But I don't know if anybody else notices that with their UFC on their Xbox. But for mine, I can't put a space. So when I'm searching fights on there, sometimes it gets kind of rough. But anyways, next fight here, Tyus White taking on Jeff Jepsen. I like this fight here. And yeah, Harry Hunsucker, winner of the main event. Perhaps. I think these guys would both be a little advanced of Harry, though, to be honest with you. I would take both these guys over Harry, needless to say. But we're at flyweight here. Tyus White taking on Jeff Jepsen. I'm excited about this fight. Jeff Jepsen, I'll be honest, haven't been super impressed with him from the fights I've been able to see, but most of the fights I've been able to see have been the losses, unfortunately. Hasn't fought since September of 2020. He's out of Iowa. He's 32 years old now, 5'6", coming down to 125 now. Usually is a bantamweight. This is his 125 debut. Knocked out Steve Merrill, favorite of ours, everybody's favorite, mustache, weird 5-5 fighter. Knocked him out in the second round with cage aggression there. The Mando Gutierrez fight was rough. Mando Gutierrez just absolutely dominated him on the ground until choking him out. Saw Mando Gutierrez recently. And then 2 losses to Nate Williams. One of them was an elbow injury, and then one of them a decision loss. A win over a 2-9 Ed Walls in there. Chris Johnson as well. Just looks, like a guy who can, get submissions on 2-5 guys, but honestly, when the level steps up, he gets pretty overwhelmed, particularly on the ground. And I do think that Tyus White is coming off a bad performance against Tony Laramie. Tony Laramie laid it on him. Tyus White was a pretty big favorite in that spot, too, from what I remember. And, he just really struggled with the pressure in that fight, did not use kind of the length and the tools he has at 125. And so we'll see how he responds to his first loss as an amateur. He's still 24 years old, 5'9", Pure Vita, fighting out of Wisconsin. So he's closer. Tony Laramie, I do rate their Laramies pretty highly, but both have a win over Ernest Walls. That's great. Ernest Walls was 2-13 when he took him on. And actually, Tyus was the underdog against Tony Laramie. I thought for some reason he was the favorite. But
he opened up as a big favorite, actually, and then it flipped before the
end. Okay, that's what I thought. Yeah, so either way, I've liked what I've seen out of Tyus, but he is also a guy who's doing this against very low levels of competition. Seems to be a long striker with some good, tricky grappling here. I think, he takes this fight to the ground and gets Jepsen in a submission, most likely. They've teed this up from last year again, so Tyus is getting the chance again. They're supposed to fight in September of last year. I just don't really rate Jepsen highly. And then I looked at the odds, and now I have nothing to play. So Tyus White is my pick by submission.
Yeah, definitely. This isn't a fight with a number that's particularly attractive on it. We have Tyus White, 4-1 prospect. He had 2 wins on LFA as an amateur, 4-0 as an amateur overall, and he's making his second pro appearance here. Lost his first outing, which was the most recent fight. That was a decision to Tony Laramie, who is very young but a very experienced regional guy and has fought, a lot of really good fighters before that, and definitely looks very promising going forward. I feel like that was a good experience for White to kind of feel that next level, and I'm sure he'll take something away from that and know which direction kind of to go, just continue with his development, because he's still very young at 24 years old, and he's 5'9". He's going to be one of the bigger guys at flyweight. just in general with a frame like that. He has a 75% finish rate. There's a lot of stuff to like about him. Really just was kind of overmatched a little bit with Tony Laramie in his last one. He was a Wisconsin State champ wrestler, wrestled after high school, I believe, at technical college. And he's coming up against Jepsen here, who is 6-3, is 32 years old. On a bit of a layoff here. His best win that he had is probably his last fight, which was back in 2020. He beat Stephen Merrill, who was 5-5 at the time, now 5-8. Hasn't beaten anyone with a winning record, I don't believe. In his last 5, he's 2-3. He has 2 losses to Nate Williams, 1 to Mondo Gutierrez. 83% finish rate, though, so he does tend to get guys out of there when he does win. I think he's going to be a decent test for White. I think he's solid. But, in the matchups that he's lost, it's just been kind of the guys who are good wrestlers, good grapplers that kind of give him a bit of trouble, and I feel like White is going to be able to challenge him a bit in that aspect. I'm going to go with the younger guy in Tyus White. Really not sure about the number here.
This is crazy.
We've never seen Tyus White either beat someone with a winning record, so I'm not, salivating to play like a minus 600 price tag on this guy, but I am going to pick him to win. Use the wrestling.
Yeah, minus 650, plus 400 on Jeff Jepsen. That's crazy line. And I'm just going to be passing on. I don't like Jeff Jepsen enough to put any sort of a bet on him at much of any number, but that is one where I think he could grind one out, and it wouldn't blow my mind at all. So I don't think Tyus White should be a minus 650 at all. But such is next is a featherweight bout is our co-main event of the evening, and I do see your question there, MMA Locker Room, and I guess we'll answer it at the end, because if I answer it now, then you might kind of know our picks for the last 2 fights. So, but we do have our thoughts on the best dog, and I'm pretty sure we have the same choice for that. But this fight, Hyder Amil versus Devonte Sewell. We're both very familiar with Devonte Sewell, maybe the most accurate nickname in MMA, the Grinder, because that's what he is. 26 years old. That's shocking to me. 9-6 for Devonte. 5'7", 72.5-inch reach, current fighting on Knuckle Up Fitness here. We've seen Devonte throughout a bunch of different regional scenes. He pops up in a lot of tape, coming off a loss in March. I mean, the guy is always fighting. He's 9-6 at 26 years old. Lost a split decision to a 4-1 Corey Jackson with NFC. Won against Jonathan Jackson with CFFC. Got a decision there. And then a decision win over Calvin Miller. And then the 3 losses came against pretty decent competition. DeAndre Anderson, has come up against a little bit of adversity, but still a very solid prospect. He lost to there at King of the Cage. Ari Farias, a very good Brazilian grappler, lost to with LFA back in the day, beat Alberto Martinez with the guillotine choke with NFC. So he's bounced around, but he's been at Bellator. He's had a win at Bellator. He's gotten quite a few guillotine chokes. He's able to latch onto that quite a bit. Rear naked choke. He just, he's a grinder. Losses to guys like Cody Durden, John Sweeney, not bad losses at all either. Testing himself pretty routinely. Going against the 5-0 Hyder Amil. Hyder Amil coming off a really good last performance with LFA. I was after, I think, a 2-year layoff or so. He's 30, I believe he's 30 or 31 years old, if I remember correctly. Fighting Gilbert Melendez's gym, El Nino. Beat Hobson Jr. up. That was back in November. Put him away in the second round. Really put a good pressure, good pace on him. It was his first fight since September of 2019. That was with after 3 fights with Bellator. Got a rear naked choke and doctor stoppage. Split decision. But, the dogs are trying to speak up for the dog here, but I think this is going to be a really good fight. Actually, I'm quite surprised that the odds are as leaned with Amil as they are. I do think Devonte has a way of keeping the fights closer than he should. I've liked what I've seen out of Amil as well, though, honestly, especially that last fight against Hobson Jr. Not sure how good Hobson Jr. is either. So I'm going to go with Amil here in this spot, but I don't love the price at all. And I do see a spot where Sewell could slap on one of those submissions. I think he can submit a lot of these guys who haven't been super tested or been off, but I'm going to go with Amil here. I think that he's pretty motivated to make this year pretty a big year, being in his 30s and having a few years taken off. So I'll take Amil here, but I don't think it's as much of a blowout as the odds seem to think. So, but I'll take Amil.
Yeah, so Devonte Sewell, man, you hit the nail on the head when you said he has an accurate nickname, right? The grinder. That is what he does. You know, he doesn't try to do anything too fancy on the feed. He lands the shots, he goes for his takedowns, and he takes what's there for him. And in a way, I like that about the way he fights. He has a 9-6 record. He is 2-4 in his last 6, but he doesn't try to take easy fights. He always tries to fight guys that are going to challenge him. And losses to guys like Aaron Phillips, Ari Farias, DeAndre Anderson, these aren't bad losses. Cody Durden way back in the day. He's consistently putting himself in the cage against good guys. It's just he doesn't tend to have a lot of success in those matchups that are that next step up. Usually he wins against opponents that are, a bit of a level below, I would say. Good top control, though. He gets the fight to the ground well, good takedowns. But I feel like he's kind of going to give Amil a fight that he doesn't really mind fighting. We have Hyder Amil, 5-0 prospect, has had 3 wins on the prelims of Bellator, and then debuted in LFA in his last fight where he finished Hobson Jr. in the second round. He has an 80% finish rate. Devonte Sewell is tough. Hyder Amil is a tough guy too, and he's relentless. He comes forward, he lands shots. I just feel like the kind of fight that Devonte Sewell needs to have to win is also a kind of fight that Amil can have a lot of success in. So, yeah, I really don't like the number, to be honest. I don't think it's accurate at all. I just don't see how he is really this big of a favorite. I mean, yeah, he finished Hobson Jr. last fight, but, I mean, it wasn't smooth sailing the whole time. It's not like he just absolutely...
No, and Hobson had lost his fight before that, so we really don't know how he's
Hobson's I think he's 21 or 22. He's really young as well.
I think he was
very early in his career.
Yeah.
So, definitely not sold on Amil at this price tag, but I am going to pick him to get the win over Devonte Sewell.
Yeah, Amil minus 700, plus 425 on Sewell. Between the Tyus fight and the Amil fight, which one would you, if you're taking a shot on one of these long shot dogs, it's Sewell, right?
Yeah, I would probably say Sewell just because I feel like he's the more talented of the 2 underdogs, I think.
Yeah, so, I mean, maybe you really, really sprinkle just those 2 underdogs, split that bet between those 2 and see if you can hit one of those plus 400s. Otherwise, just leave them alone because I just think Amil I learned the hard way with Mr. Starks. Learned the hard way. You don't want to lose on minus 800s. They hurt. They hurt really bad, even if it's just a little bit. So Hyder should take this one, but Sewell fights like an underdog, and he's the type of underdog who definitely could cash here. Hyder is coming down from 155, while Sewell is typically a featherweight too, so that could help with the gas as the fight goes as well for Sewell. Just looking for a few digging, if you will, for a few reads on the dog here. But going to move on to the main event here. It is a heavyweight title fight. Thomas Peterson taking on Waldo Cortes-Acosta here. This is a very good heavyweight fight here. Kind of tale of 2 styles here. Got the freight train that is Thomas Peterson, just going to come forward, both with the strikes, with the wrestling, with the grappling, everything like that. It's just pressure, pace. Can you keep up with it? And Waldo, a little more about trying to – just 1 second. Sorry. But with Waldo, definitely more of an elusive kind of striker, a little more light on his feet, throws a little more variety, doesn't quite put as much, I would say, power into his strikes. But he's going to have an 8-inch reach advantage, according to Tapology, in this fight. He's going to be the taller fighter here. He's a little bit older, fighting out of Arizona, originally from Dominican Republic. Both these guys are 5-0. Waldo came off of a fight against a 7-7 opponent, and I believe Derek Weaver. And, there were points in that first round where Derek Weaver was kind of putting it on Waldo a little bit. And there were definitely some nervous spots. It was good that he was able to fight through the adversity, tired out Dylan by the second round, basically landed a solid right cross that put Derek away, put him away on the ground. Before that, went over Mo Darius with Bellator. that's not a bad decision. What I like is that he has gone to distance a couple times. So if this fight isn't over immediately, I do think he is the fighter who's more likely to be able to deal with the later rounds better between these two. He does have some boxing experience as well. Hasn't faced a crazy level of competition in MMA. Mo Doris, probably the best level of competition, and I would say Thomas Peterson is significantly better. 5-0 for the Train. Kind of forgot that was his nickname when I said he fights like that, but another very accurate nickname. Wrestling style, fighting out of Minnesota, gonna have the crowd completely behind him. In this fight, Spartan MMA is where he fights out of. Beat Vernon Lewis, a good veteran in his last fight, but beat him in a minute. Most of his fights, in fact, all of his fights ending in under 4 minutes. All of them coming with LFA. Not a huge level of competition that he has faced either. But it does seem that when he hits people and puts that pressure on, they do seem to crack. I did see Waldo was quite hittable, especially kind of early by Derek Weaver. I think that Peterson hitting those kind of shots on him does put him away. I'm going to go with Peterson first round finish here. I think that it just kind of continues. I don't think Waldo's going to be able to deal with those shots and be elusive enough. But I do get nervous if this hits the second round or beyond. Second round or beyond, I start to really wish I went with Waldo, but I'm going to take Thomas to get that finish in the first round. But after the first round, I do think that Waldo can start to take over. But I don't know. We haven't seen Thomas outside the first round. But even in the first round, we're seeing him slow down in a few of these fights. So I would think with how he fights and everything, he can't do that for 25 minutes. And so that would leave me a little bit hesitant here, but I got to go with Thomas still. Fight starts in the first round. So Thomas, KO, round 1.
Yeah, I think this is a great main event. I'm looking forward to seeing this one. Cortes-Acosta getting a crack at the title in his second LFA appearance here. You mentioned he stopped Derek Weaver in the second round last time out. Undefeated so far in MMA, also has some pro boxing fights. He has 10 of them. He's 6-4 over there. And I'm inclined to agree with you. I think his best win for sure is Mo Doris on Bellator. He's going to have a lot of reach here on Thomas Peterson. He's got an 80-inch reach compared to, I think, 71 inches for Thomas Peterson. Cortes-Acosta is also pretty tall, 6'4". He has that boxing background. He is going to have a lot of reach to work with in this one, has pretty good hands. Sometimes he does load up a lot and can swing pretty hard. He was a little bit more patient in that fight against Mo Doris. I thought he looked pretty good there. Heavy jab. Has, showed some okay takedown defense against Mo Doris and, was able to get some control time against Derek Weaver on the ground. But Peterson is kind of a different caliber of wrestler, in my opinion, although Cortes-Acosta will have the size, so maybe that could come into play a little bit. I really don't see any situation where Cortes-Acosta is looking to grapple offensively here at all. He's going to be fighting the champ, Thomas Peterson, who's on 10 straight wins. 5 as an amateur, 5 as a pro. All 5 pro wins have been knockouts. And I was really impressed with his last fight where he beat Vernon Lewis. So I had never picked against Thomas Peterson before, but Vernon Lewis plus 300. Yep. Talking about a guy in Vernon Lewis who has beaten guys who are in the UFC, fought really good, regional heavyweights. So that was a spot where I just, I wanted Thomas Peterson, show me that you are the real deal. If you can do this to Vernon Lewis, then I'll start thinking about you kind of as one of the next level guys. And he did that for me. So right. I liked what I saw out of him in that performance. 72-inch reach, though. That's not long for heavyweight. 6'1", also wasn't super tall for the division, weighing in around 240. So he is a bit smaller in most of his fights, but the X factor is the speed, man. He's so fast at heavyweight, and he just explodes into the pocket and he puts people out. And you mentioned Cortes-Acosta, we saw him get touched in his last fight against Derek Weaver. And, if Peterson gets inside and lands that on you, I think that's going to be big trouble. Has that wrestling background, jiu-jitsu blue belt, I think. He was a state champion in Minnesota in high school for wrestling. I think he was a national champion in junior college, and he gets to the hips so quick, man. Just the speed of this guy at heavyweight is really the X factor in this fight for me. Yeah. We've seen him do good work on the ground as well, get dominant positions, land damage, and I think that this fight is just going to come down to Peterson being able to close the distance and be able to do that without getting clipped. There just isn't much for him out there at range. He's at a reach disadvantage. He's fighting a boxer. He needs to use that speed, get inside, land his shots, shoot the takedowns, and I think this is somewhat of a volatile fight just because both guys can end the fight. But, I mean, speed kills, man. I'm going to go with Thomas Peterson to get inside, work his game, and find a finish here.
Yeah, and the price has been getting a little closer here. Peterson minus 175, plus 135 on Waldo Cortes-Acosta. And then Kelly making his appearance here. Peterson's way more polished. Waldo Acosta doesn't jab well for that 80-inch reach. He slap punches more than officially uses a striking. Peterson's a nasty wrestler with great striking. Peterson all day. Yeah, I definitely am going to be on Peterson. I will be putting a bet down at the minus 175 price. I think it's a good price there. To get back to locker rooms question here, our answer is Dylan Budka. I do believe he's the best dog on the card available. Quang could do it, but that is kind of one I'm not nearly as confident on. And then for the bigger underdog fights between Jepsen and Sewell, while we both have Amil and White, we both agree Sewell is the better of the long shot underdogs here. And then, yeah, I do like Thomas Peterson. I think Peterson is very, very good. Yeah, Budka is reckless, mindless Hawk, baby. Yeah, I mean, it's his nickname. Everybody has accurate nicknames this weekend for the LFA between the grinder and everything like that. So the mindless Hawk should not have, be unreckless. So that's going to do it for the LFA breakdown here. We already got the Bellator breakdown, so we got double MMA on Friday with Bellator and LFA. UFC breakdown on the channel with many of MMA ideas. But for Lucky Locks, for Aaron the Dog, we're out for the week, and I will see you next week. We got the Jessica Andrade headline card next week for the UFC. So, oh boy, Jessica Andrade versus Mamos and others. So that should be a fun one. But until next week, PFL debuts next week. So you'll see Lucky and I breaking down real PFL fights after a long Challengers series in which we didn't even know there was one the last week. So hopefully PFL gets their shit together. Probably not. But for Aaron and Lucky, keep taking care of each other out there. Appreciate you all. Peace out.